In this lesson, we are going to talk about processing input from a POST request.
Okay.
In the previous lesson, we saw how we could submit data to the server via the GET method.
Right.
There's another method that is very commonly used with server scripting in general, and that is the POST method.
So what are the differences between the two?
Unlike a GET method where you have the data visible in the URL,
right.
a POST method is a different form of submitting information that does not use the URL.
Okay.
The data is submitted, but in most cases, in most browsers, it's almost completely behind the scenes.
Ah, I see.
Data is most frequently assembled in the form of an HTML form, where you would have various input fields, and it is then submitted. Within your form, you specify that you wish to use the POST method, and then later in your script to handle that, you'll have to deal with the POST array.
Okay, I gotcha.
So let's get started. How would we go about sending data? Well, generally, without having a custom web browser, you can't just make up POST data and send it.
Right.
In our case, we will need to build an HTML form in order to send POST data.
Okay.
So let's get started. Let's create a form. I'm going to start an echo, and I'm going to go with a multi-line here, and we're going to create an HTML form. And let's see. Let's start off with form. Now, of course, I could go live, go create this from the menus and whatnot.
Right.
I'm going to type this out so that we see all the values being set.
Okay.
So we're going to say we have a form. Its action is going to be where we submit to.
Okay.
In our case, we need to submit to ourselves. We're going to be calling the script post.php. So I'll say that our action is post.php, and our method is equal to post. And I'll close off the form tag. Now, inside of here, we need to specify some type of input. And we'll do that by using an input tag. And we'll say that the type is going to be text, so we'll have a text field we can type in. And its name is going to be just text. We could name this whatever. Maybe we'll name it name. We'll look at that in a minute.
Okay.
And that should be all we need for the input itself. So up until now, that seems like that should be what we need. We have a form, and we have some form of input. Let's see what this is looking like. So we'll save it out to post.php and look at it in our web browser. So post.php. Well, that's interesting. What is this? We can type in it, but how do we use it? That's nice. We have, in fact, created a form. We have our input field. There's nothing we can do. There is no way we can submit this because we lack a submit button.
Okay.
Just wanted to point that out so now we know, okay, this is exactly why we need to do this next part.
Okay.
We need another type of input. We need an input that will allow us to submit. So we'll say input type equals submit, and leave it at that.
Okay.
So what does that do? Now we have a submit query. Let's say we want to change the text of that button. So we'll change its value to just say submit instead of submit query. So there we have a submit button.
There you go.
So we can type something, we can submit it, so let's hit the button. Cool, we did in fact go to post.php. If in our action we had specified some other script, that's where we would go. This is basically where we're going to go when we hit submit.
Okay.
So we have the form going to ourselves, so we should be submitting some data via the post method.
Right.
Now, within PHP, how do we handle that? Let's take a look. If you remember from the last lesson, we used isSet to check and see if a variable had in fact or does in fact exist. So we're going to do that again. We're going to say if isSet $_ and last time we used post. Last time we used get. Now we're going to use post.
Ah, I see.
So which element do we want to submit or put? The name of our text field was simply text, so that's what I'm going to be looking for.
And once again, it is case sensitive.
Yes, all of these are both the keys and the names of the variables are case sensitive. So with that, if that is set and that evaluates true, then let's do something. We'll say echo $text concatenate to some more was submitted via the post method and line break. So let's see if this works. Is our script still valid? It is. So we'll say cat submit undefined variable text on line 4. Well,
was submitted by the post method.
So let's see what we did here. I'm thinking we did a check on... Oh, I see.
Yeah.
This actually brings up an interesting point, something that wasn't touched on in the previous lesson. We have been talking about the data existing. What happens if you just tried to use $text straight out? In our case, it doesn't exist. This is actually due to a setting within PHP. It was actually common in older versions of PHP to have any value submitted automatically become a variable inside of PHP.
I see.
So you might have actually seen older servers where you could do this. These days, it's recommended that you avoid this, even if your server has it enabled, because that's kind of dangerous. If you're just using everyday variables like this, let's say in past cases when we used $A or whatever other variable, that meant that you could just say $$A equals something,
right,
and preset the values, which could cause problems. In our case, we have register globals turned off in our ini file. This means that anything sent to us does not automatically become a variable name. It is accessible only through the respective arrays, the get array and the post array.
I gotcha.
So, of course, $text isn't set, and therefore we will need to put the full, access it properly through the post array. Let's go back here and type in cat again.
Kate. And there you
Cat
go.
was submitted via the post method.
I see. Cool.
So that's working. And once again, not much more complicated. Again, we have to get into forms when dealing with post.
Right.
Because otherwise, this isn't... If you notice here, when we submit cat, there is nothing in the URL. Cat is data being sent, but it is not sent via the URL.
I gotcha.
Now, that's pretty much all we need to cover in this lesson. A fairly simple lesson, again, but something that will become very critical in the future. When we need to start,
these are just pretty much just preps for what's going to be upcoming.
Right, when we need to start building administration screens and whatnot, it'll be very important to be able to take input from the user in a form.
Right, so this won't be foreign to you. When we start talking about it, you won't be racking your head trying to figure it out.
So all we looked at here is the post predefined array and talked about how we access that and how we use a form to generate the data in the first place.
All right.
So that's going to wrap up this lesson.
All right, cool.